Well, over the last 10 days or so, India's space sector has come into focus, and here's a company which does, it's a new company, it's the first time we're speaking to them, but it does aerospace, defense, and space. I mean, it's valued at 150 times earnings, but at the same time, it's great to understand how the environment is adapting. And the other piece is, of course, how business for Rossell Techsys in particular is looking. And what should the glide path be in terms of execution. By the way, they're likely to triple their revenues, their current revenues, in the next 2 years. That's broad level guidance. I mean, from 450 odd crore, it's expected to reach around 1300 crore in terms of top line FY28. So some very strong growth as well. Some of it obviously getting priced in, but we'll try and understand as to what the company is up to. And just to try and give you first a sense, this originated as the aerospace division of Rossell India, which is also a listed company, smaller. And currently this one, Rossell Techsys, has a market cap of 3,600 crore. It's part of the Rossell Group or Rossell India Group. The demerger was effective 1st April 2023. What it does is it's into high reliability engineering and manufacturing services for aerospace and defense. We'll obviously break up the product and service list. And to start off with, the first product is electrical wiring and interconnected systems harnesses. Very simply put, it's the wiring that goes inside an aircraft, right? Just as an example, inside an aircraft, the wiring is complex. There's a bundle of cables and connecting power data across the aircraft system. So that is the first element of their product list. The second one is electrical panel assemblies. And part of that, or rather, in addition to that, there's also engineering services they provide. I'll look at the electrical panel assemblies first. It's like the control center, the brain, the command center of the aircraft, where all of these wiring systems feed data into. And therefore, that's something which they also help build. It's pre-wired in terms of the control panels, etc. And there are relays, indicators, switches, electronics, and the like within that system. Then there's electronic systems and system integration, which is also here, electronic systems and system integration. What that comprises of is basically the connections between the various organs. So one is to build the wiring system inside, but also to connect each of the organs correctly within the aircraft. So that's design and integrate circuit boards, processors, softwares into assemblies and the like. You've got automatic testing equipment. Of course, you require strong testing and a checkup of everything once you've installed it. And then there's electrical and electronic aftermarket MRO, which is maintenance and repair operations. Maintenance, repair, and ops. So all of that is taken care of in the MRO services which they provide. And last off is engineering services itself, which is the design of the system before they install it. Of course, you have to design it. So they are part of the design team, support, documentation, qualification, engineering for customer platforms is what they do. In terms of some of the segments which are emerging, right? So they have the ability to do all of this, but in terms of revenue, all of this is not contributing to revenue currently. I'll explain as to why, but what could start significantly contributing to revenue going forward? One is the India defense opportunity. Two is the MRO opportunity, which I spoke about, maintenance, repair, and ops. And the third is the commercial aerospace opportunity, which they have yet to fully venture into. And fourth is the capacity expansion they are undertaking to ensure that all of this starts to play out also on the top line. So that's the way to think of this. In terms of verticals it operates in the aerospace and defense domain. That's the first vertical. It also does semiconductors. So that's the second vertical. And third is the space vertical. Currently, the aero and the defense vertical is what is contributing to the numbers. Aero more than defense. Commercial aero is also something that they will venture into. Customers, well, you've got customers like Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Honeywell, BAE Systems, and the like. But it's basically global OEMs, which are evident from the names here. They work with tier 1 aerospace companies. They work with tier 1 defense companies to ensure that their products are pushed out on the platforms of these companies. The facility currently is around 225,000 square foot size in Bengaluru. They have leased another 210,000 square feet facility in Bengaluru itself, adjoining the current facility. The facility is yet to go live, by the way, the leased one. And the last one is they've got a 4,200 square foot facility in Arizona in the United States as well. So that's the presence which we're speaking about. Now, what's unique about aerospace and why does it sometimes take long periods of time to actually enter into the segment and really make a dent on the revenue? So first off is the entry barriers are extremely high, right? And even the product life is extremely high. So if one were to switch vendors midway, that would take a decade to switch. That becomes the problem, and therefore, and the costs of switching are also extremely high, and therefore, that becomes the unique problem. But once you've gotten in, and once you've got a foothold, the revenues are visible for 20 to 40 years sometimes. So they can be long gestation contracts, extremely long, and there's also a very good recurring aftermarket revenue, which is repairs and maintenance, which I spoke about. And that makes sense because only those who have manufactured it would know how to kind of ensure that maintenance happens well. And therefore, and of course, there's a very high degree of certainty required in terms of getting the maintenance right. And therefore, there's very little scope for error. Now, in terms of the financials, right? Let's try and contextualize it. The top line has gone from 217 crore in FY24. The sharpest growth is seen in FY26, which is 485 crore. Prior to that, while data is available, we're not really sure because we haven't really picked it from the Rossell India financials. We've stuck to the Rossell Techsys disclosures which the company has made. So 485 crore being the top line for FY26. When you're looking at EBITDA, it's gone up from 32 crore to 64 crore, still a far cry given the kind of market cap this commands. But you look at the PAT, it's gone from 11 crore to 22 crore. So largely the similar and same kind of trajectory, top line, EBITDA and PAT. And you'll see the margins, they're also largely in line. So around 14.5% to 13% currently. Broadly, that's the range they operate in. The goal is to go to 17 to 22% in terms of margins. By the way, they sit on a 700 crore odd order book as well. So the book to bill is around 1.5 times. That's the other piece I wanted to quickly cover. But if you can pull up margins and give viewers that texture of how margins have shaped up. There you go. And in terms of order book as well, it's around 700 crore, just for your knowledge. In terms of balance sheet, so book value is roughly 150 crore, 150 or 160 crore broadly, right? For a market cap which is 3,600 crore. So just to kind of contextualize that, that's nearly a 25 times book is what this one trades at. In terms of the borrowing number, it's at 409 crore. Why is that so? A large receivable number or some bit of stretch on both receivables as well as inventory, right? Both of those are stretching the borrowing number. It's all short-term borrowing sitting in the balance sheet, which is also a concern. 48 crore in terms of cash bank. By the way, they plan to shrink the receivables, and that'll show up in the cash flow as well. You can see that. They plan to shrink the inventory days rather than receivables, more inventory days, from 7.5 months currently to around 4 months. So that should shrink the working capital requirements quite sharply, which should hopefully unwind some of the debt which they've taken up. But we'll try and get a perspective as to how quickly that unwinds and how much, right? So that's cash flow. Return ratios 8 to 12%. Still some bit to prove in terms of the company, right? There's still some way to go. But if things were to pick up, we try and get a sense that the revenue pickup will be extremely sharp. If margins were to trend at 17 to 22%, again, the ROCs will improve very, very quickly. But at least for the moment, not visible. Sub 15% in terms of ROC. And you have to contextualize this, that it's also a space which takes time to penetrate. And therefore, those risks also exist. But at the same time, the understanding is that once it starts converting to revenue, you could well see an unwind here. Let's look at shareholding. 75% held by the promoters, 74.99%. And FI is owning around 2, DI is owning around 1%. The public holding the balance. The number of shareholders have gone up from 15,000 to 27,000 in the last couple of years. Valuations. So we've kept this as a neutral, and this is why, right? It trades at 150 times earnings currently. A 12-month average P is around 120 times. The 12-month range is around 100 to 200 times. But you've got an EBITDA number currently of around 63 crore on 3,600 crore of market cap, so around 60 times EBITDA. But I'll just quickly, give you the change. The goal is to get to a 900 crore top line by end of this year, roughly, and 1,300 crore top line by FY28. The margin number of 70 to 22% will largely mean that you'll range between 150 crore roughly of EBITDA by the end of this year, which means there's a sharp shrink on the EBITDA number itself, right? Plus, if there's a cash flow unwind, that could also, reduce the amount of debt, which could translate to profitability straight up. So all of that will mean that PE will shrink very quickly if execution plays out. Also, on the 1,300 crore top line, mind you, the EBITDA number will be around 250 odd crore, which will also mean that the PE will again shrink. Again, the question is that at 150 times, is it still high? Yes, 100%. At least 2 to 3 years of growth has already been easily built in to the kind of numbers that we're seeing in front of us. Therefore, neutral on the valuations. But let me bring on board Senthil Bala. He's the CEO at Rossell Techsys, joining us this afternoon. Great having you, Senthil. Let me first start off with the growth numbers, right? You've guided for, I believe, nearly 80% growth for FY27. Talk to us about what are the new verticals that are going to contribute to this growth. How much of the existing verticals are going to contribute to this growth? Just give us a sense of that first.
Okay. Hey, good morning, good afternoon. Thank you for having me on the show. Be exciting times for us. Like you said, the growth trajectory is pretty strong, and it comes from 3 different verticals, right? One is aerospace and defense. Rossell is in every single defense platform for Boeing, whether it is the fighter jet programs, whether it is Apache, Chinook, the newly launched E7. So we are on every single defense platform. And with the geopolitics that, the growth continues. And then the second vertical we are in is the space program. We work with a couple of the major companies in the US who are into space programs. And their volumes are also doubling. We did several thousand wire harnesses for them last year. And this year, they've asked us to double and triple their volume. So that's another thing that's going to help us grow. The third vertical we are in, which is also pretty exciting, is the semiconductor business. We are working with 2 major, huge, giant companies in the US, and we are qualified with both of them. And again, they are asking us to double and triple our volumes in the coming year and the following year. So to answer your question, all the 3 verticals we are in, they are all growing. And we are super excited that it's going to, take Rossell to new heights that we've never seen before.
Point taken. Senthil, let me break this up, right? Let's address the Boeing opportunity first. You currently do around 5 to 7% off, or you've taken 5 to 7% of the cost pie of Boeing. Is the understanding? Correct me if I'm wrong. The goal is to get to 12 to 15%. Sorry, please go ahead.
No, go ahead. We are at around 3 to 5% of the aircraft today because we do wire harnesses and some of the control panels. And the goal is certainly to go, grow that number to double that, right? So whether it is getting into electromechanical parts, more and more of the electronics. So that's where the trajectory is.
How quickly can that happen?
You mentioned earlier the entry into these defense platforms are tough. Luckily, we are qualified in every single platform. No, it's just a matter of expanding our portfolio. We work very closely with Boeing, on some of the new programs that are coming up. So we are in a pretty good position, and we are getting qualified on some of the new ones, like, for example, E7. It's a new platform that is getting launched, and we are, having weekly meetings with partners to see how do we, design and also manufacture these components for the new platforms.
You've said that the long-term goal is to get to 25 to 30%. What's the realistic timeline for that? How long does it take? Just for viewers to get a grip that these are indeed extremely long-term kind of arrangements, right?
Right. Most of the contracts we have are long-term. Like you mentioned earlier, defense contracts are not single-year contracts, right? They're multi-year contracts, and we have long-term agreements with several thousand crores. So with that being said, getting to these numbers that you mentioned, we are on an aggressive trajectory of growth, and we see it happening over the next 12, 24 months. You mentioned some of the numbers earlier in your presentation, and we are pretty confident we will hit all of those numbers that you had mentioned.
Okay, Senthil, just from a timeline perspective, you're currently 3 to 5. How quickly do you get to 10 to 12? And how quickly do you get to 25 to 30? What's the internal target? What's the internal goal based on conversations that you're having?
So going from the 3 to 5% of the aircraft, taking that up, to double that number will take another 12, 24 months, right? Because there again, you're talking about expanding your product portfolio and things like that. And then beyond that, it's electromechanical systems, and that also needs newer qualification. So another way to look at it is the existing product portfolio that we have, including MRO, that itself has huge growth potential, right? Financially speaking, the existing products alone will get us to some of these targets that we have for the next 2 to 3 financial years. And in addition to that, you mentioned we are also talking to, OEMs on commercial. So that's also going to give us a huge amount of volumes coming into play. We are in the process of getting those qualified. So when you get into those, then you talk about some big volumes.
How quickly can you qualify, and what's the basis of you qualifying? Because, of course, one of the bases is you getting a leg into Boeing, but also give us a sense as to what happens to the existing vendors of these customers. I mean, I'm sure that they've gotten comfortable working with them. You will have to replace some of these vendors, right? Isn't that how this works?
Correct. And good question. So one way to look at it is, there are existing customers. Some of them could be in-house, right? And OEMs are now looking to outsource a lot of these to India. Specific to Rossell, the benefit we have is we've been with Boeing for 14 years. This is 15 years in the making, right? This is our 15th year anniversary for Rossell. And we have the highest level of quality. If you go to our Boeing portal, it'll show you that we are 99.6% quality. And so that builds a level of confidence for the OEM that say, okay, Rossell is a company that's been here for a long time. Their quality is good, their delivery is good. So those kind of help us tremendously as we get qualified into other programs. And if you look at qualification on some of these, once you get qualified for defense, that's the highest level you can ever get qualified. So once you're qualified for all the defense platforms, getting qualified for commercial or getting qualified into, we talk about the semicon business and space, it is much easier, relatively easier, because our systems are very strong and our processes are extremely robust. And like I said, once you're into aerospace qualification, the others become very easy to get qualified.
So defense and commercial aero, what's the timeline for qualification there? What's the internal target?
In the next 12 to 24 months, we should be in a good position to get qualified for commercial. And we are already in conversations right now. So we are pretty optimistic, confidential that within the next 12, 24 months, we'll get qualified.
And this is not included as part of the top line of 1,300 crore that you've guided for FY28. All of this will be over and above, because my understanding is Boeing itself will carry you to maybe 1,000 crore in terms of revenue.
Yes, what you're saying is true. We will get to these numbers that you have projected without commercial. Again, the fuel, the trajectory, the aggressive growth patterns from those 3 sectors, right? It is aerospace, defense, and then you have obviously space, and then the third one is obviously semicon. All 3 will help us, get to these numbers.
Got it. And Senthil, how much does Boeing contribute to your current top line?
Today, if you look at it, I'll start with even a higher level. Our aerospace and defense is around 60%, non-aerospace is around 40%. And out of the 60%, I bet you 80% of that, 75, 80% of our top line revenue comes from Boeing.
And 4xing that should not technically be a problem, right? In the next 2 years, just given the fact that you'll increase the size of the cost pie.
Yeah, it is possible to double and triple that number for sure. Yes.
Okay, so that's on the existing business. Let's talk about semicon. Uh, Semicon, is that something that you're doing from an existing product-based perspective, or are you hunting for newer customers to push out semicon as well? Is this just something that you're going to use internally as part of whatever you do on the existing products, or is it also going to be something that you're going to do standalone and supply to other customers standalone?
So semicon, we work with two major companies in the US, and they are multi-billion dollar companies, and they've come to us. We are qualified with both of them, and we are in the process of a heavy ramp up, and those numbers will double and triple, dramatically. And these are it's a combination. 80% of the volumes that we do today are for existing programs, but we are also, because of our good engineering presence, our sourcing capability, we are also partnering with the semicon companies to develop new products with them, right? Two separate things. One is existing, which is 80% of the volume. The other one would be working on new product development hand in hand with these semicon businesses.
And on MRO, how much, what's the scope like? What's the immediate scope like as soon as you qualify?
So recently, we got our MRO certification. So all these years, Rossell was very well known for designing and manufacturing, electrical components, test equipment. So now with MRO in play, we are in a good position to also do aftermarket service. And many of our customers have asked us for this, right? Because we are the experts in wire harness. We've been doing this for a long time. And so we are already in talks with some of the local players in India for MRO partnership. And very soon, we should be able to, have some big programs on MRO supporting the local and the global OEMs.
How should therefore margins shape up for you? You said on existing products, margins can go up to 17 to 22%. That's based on your con-call guidance. On the new products that come in, will they be margin dilutive for you? And Boeing, does that turn profitable? Sorry, 2-3 questions wrapped into one to give us a blended margin picture for the next couple of years.
Yeah, so good question. So margins, should grow. The guidance that you talked about from previous calls, we expect margins to grow because you also have volume, right? You have benefit of scale, and so operational efficiency comes into play. And initial qualifications are usually tough, but once you're qualified, adding more parts to these programs, qualification is less of a problem, and the growing pains are down. Your ramp up is much sooner, learning curves are much faster. So as we add products to our portfolio, our margins should expand. We don't see margin dilution. We're actually seeing the margins getting better. Like I said, volume helps us. Definitely learning curves are down, and our operational efficiency is up.
And Senthil, also curious to know, cash flow and working capital, that's been one of the challenges which you've been facing, right? How confident are you of that unwinding? And when does cash flow from operations become positive? Is it FY27?
Sure. So traditionally, Rossell has been carrying more than 10 months of inventory, right? 10 and a half months. Last year, we were able to bring that down from 10 and a half months to 7.8 months. And this year, by the time we finish this financial year, we have aggressive goals to get to, 6 months. So that alone is going to help free up cash, as you can imagine. Going forward, we are also pretty serious on, taking that number even further down. In the next 24 months, our goal is to, have that inventory down to like 3 months, 4 months, right? Then you're talking about positive cash flow and huge favorable impact on working capital. Today, a lot of money is tied up in inventory, and it has been a blessing, right? In the past, having inventory on hand has always been, a blessing where we're able to deliver products on time. But right now, our focus is to keep our customers happy, but also, reduce our working capital.
Point taken. What does that do to debt, Senthil, very quickly?
It will definitely have a positive impact on debt, because when you are buying less and shipping more, straight line math, right? So it helps with your working capital. And we already are seeing favorable, I guess, results in terms of our inventory turns, number of days we are carrying months. And like I mentioned, we track this very closely on how much are we buying versus how much are we shipping. So that straight line math itself is helping us with our cash, and it will help with the profitability, of course.
All right, Senthil, thank you so much for coming in and joining us. That gives us some bit of a perspective on how we should see the journey for Rossell pan out. Our viewers totally timed out on this edition of All About Your Company. Thanks so much for tuning in. That's all the time we have.